Good morning, and thank you for joining me today. I'm Dana Luca, Investor and Relations Media Manager for ReNerve Limited. ReNerve Limited specializes in developing novel products to transform the repair and regeneration of damaged nerves and related soft tissue repairs. ReNerve aims to create the nerve repair material combinations to address the unmet need for large nerve gap replacements. ReNerve has an open IPO to list on the ASX to raise between 5 and 7 million via the issue of between 25 and 35 million shares at an offer price of 20 cents. Once listed, the company will have an implied market cap of 28.4 million at the maximum subscription. We are closing the book early next week, so to tell you more about the company and our exciting IPO, I would like to introduce you to our Dr. Julian Chick.
Welcome, everybody. As I mentioned, we are a tissue-based medical device company working in the area of peripheral nerve repair and regeneration. This is to repair those peripheral nerves. That's everything off our central nervous system that make our arms and legs move, talk, etc. We are building a product portfolio, and that's the key to the business. You can see our products down below of the image on the right. So we're aiming to get 3 products into the market over the next 4 years, with the first of those products in the market, i.e. FDA approved currently. We've set up sales and distribution, and we're really looking at it as a business that is transforming from being purely R&D now into transitioning into a commercial business. Peripheral nerves, as I said before, are all of those nerves that run off your central nervous system, arms, legs, through the torso, etc. And the market is significant. It's estimated to be around about $1.7 billion, or around about 900,000 cases in the United States each year that have application. But it's a well and truly underserved market, and a lot of it has an opportunity for us to grow into. The market can be then broken down, and I'll talk a little bit about those, but into the nerve wraps or cuffs, which we have one of those products. The largest part of the market is the conduits. We have one of those. And then the nerve grafts, although I believe that the nerve grafts will take over the conduits in the future. North America, or USA, I should say, is the largest single market, followed by Europe and other jurisdictions. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Nerves can be injured in a number of ways, everything from carpal tunnel, which is the compression of the nerve, right through to major trauma. And we look to deal with all of those such that we can give a complete solution to the surgeons. Also note that that the market size is growing at around about 17+%. And the driver for that is both understanding by surgeons of the need for treatment of nerves and nerve repair, and as well as bringing better products to market, such as what we're doing. This slide really sums up the company. As I mentioned before, we have a portfolio of products. I'm going to talk specifically about the first 3, the yellow, orange, and teal. The yellow product is our nerve cuff. Think about this as a Band-Aid. It's wrapped around when a nerve has been repaired. The classic example of that would be when a nerve, for example, someone taking the pip out of an avocado, the knife slips, cuts the median nerve in the hand. That may be brought together by the surgeon and sutured, or various other ways of attaching them together. And then you would wrap this around as a Band-Aid per se, to protect it from inflammation and scarring. Our second product is a nerve conduit. If they're thinking of the first product as a Band-Aid, this one is a straw. So it has a hollow area, whereby if a small gap occurs, so there's a small bit of nerve needs to be replaced, so that surgeon would then thread both ends into the straw, and that gives it a very protected environment for the nerve to regenerate. Nerves are great in the sense that they will regenerate. However, they have the downside that if left to go, they will branch and create what we call neuromas, or the ability to have ongoing pain post-operatively. And so this is a protector conduit, and provides the ideal environment for the nerve to regenerate, but really applicable to only small damages, 1 centimeters or so, where there's a gap. And then the rainmaker, I think, for the business is the Nerve Guide Matrix. This is an off-the-shelf, ready-to-use nerve replacement. Currently, there's very limited options for surgeons, and we're bringing that to market. So the cuff itself, as I mentioned before, is on the market at the moment in the United States. Over the next 12 months, you'll see us branch into the rest of the world through partnerships and approvals. It's a big milestone for us coming forward. The conduit is around 12 months away from market. We are just in the process of manufacturing this on scale and reproducibility, and then illustrating that to the regulatory authorities that we can do so. And then the same with the guide matrix or the graft, it's also in manufacturing. So I would point out at this point, for all of these products, the R&D per se is completed. It's now at a process of progressing from production scale up through to approval and onto market. Hence my comment earlier that we are in a transition from being originally an R&D based company, now moving into that commercial stage. We have established distribution. We warehouse and distribute out of Minneapolis and in the center of the US. And then we've divided the United States into 5 area zones. We haven't put a sales force in at the moment. We've been using local distributors, although as we go forward and bring additional products to market, we'll start to support them with our own boots on the ground, as it were, but we won't be building an extensive sales force. I would estimate somewhere between 3 and 5 people, one each cover each zone. The approach has been very much to pick up specific centers in each of these jurisdictions. For example, we gained approval at Suda Medical in San Francisco. They're now a repeat customer. We have repeat procedures in those centers. So again, logically looking at the major population hubs of the United States, California, Texas, Florida, New York, New England area, and obviously the Midwest, Wisconsin, Minneapolis, through to Michigan. We focus in those areas. So what we're doing is we're bringing in those reference centers that allow us to have repeat orders. It also allows us to get into group purchasing organizations, which have greater distribution, so that we can say, here is our reference site. We also use this for peer-to-peer selling. So surgeons that use our product at one center, we ask them for referrals or who else may be interested in that. So we're doing a peer-to-peer. And then the final part of that is we do have some post-market clinical work going on in these centers. The first of those publications will be coming out in the next few months, and we'll continue to build up that body of evidence around the clinical data. I would also add that we would use that clinical data as well as the repository of existing patients that have been used, the product's been used in. We'll be using those for our European submission. So overall, logistics is established, warehousing is established, invoicing established. And I would add at this point, we're not establishing this just for the first product, for the cuff. This is really to build the infrastructure for sales and distribution for the 3 programs in the portfolio. As I mentioned previously, this is the nerve cuff is our first product. It's on the market in the United States. It's FDA cleared. And its big advantage is that it's absorbed within 6 months. That is, it's a very benign product. It serves its role as a protector of the nerve repair site, but within 6 months, it disappears. It's naturally absorbed into the surrounding tissue. That's a big driver for us, as well as the flexibility or the versatility of the product when it's used. And it's considerably cheaper than the incumbent in the market. And with that basis that even at that cheaper rate, we are still at gross margins of over 90%. So we do get a good, we're still getting considerable upside in terms of commercial value. We have 3 sizes in the market, a 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter, a 2 centimeter by 3 centimeter, and a 3 centimeter by 4 centimeter. And they sell for on average ASPs in the United States at $650, $1,050, and $1,450. The majority of our cases, we've been in a couple of hundred patients now in the United States. We've had no adverse events and no negative outcomes. In fact, quite the opposite. It's all been very positive outcomes and benefits to the patient. We've seen full recoveries with the majority of our cases in hands, although recently we've seen some cases evolve into more expanded into breast reconstruction and into phalloplasty, so some of the urinary work that's done. I would add too that there's no changes in the technique of the procedure for the surgeons. And so we're not really trying to change a surgical application. The products themselves are reimbursed under the surgical code. That is that the products don't need individual reimbursement, but rather the procedure as a whole is reimbursed. And the images down at the bottom here just show you an example of how the cuff would be used either with a graft as the first image or a transected nerve, one that's been cut and then put back together, coapted, or even as an overlay to protect an area. This is a classic case that we often refer to. This patient here had pain in their thumb. It was removed it was caused by the presence of a benign tumor. That was removed, and you can see here the radial nerve in the thumb, the blue plastic showing the gap that's created by the removal of the tumor. Then the surgeon then created a small conduit or straw to fill that gap to provide a protective environment for that nerve to regenerate, and then has used a larger version of the same cuff to protect that entire site and then microclip that in place. Microclips are just like staples. And the key to this is that, well, I should add that the patient had a full recovery, but this is a kind of a classic case that we would refer to. So that's the first product in the market. We're following it up, the conduit, which is fundamentally the same product. It's made under the same technology. Our core technology and intellectual property is around our eco technology or supercritical CO2. This is the use of carbon dioxide under pressure and gas. So it flows like a liquid, as it were, but fills the space like a gas. And what this does is it's a very gentle process for us to treat the core tissue. It starts life as the pericardia from a pig, as it were. So porcine pericardia, but there's no animal product in there by the end of it. It's pretty much, it's all type 1 collagen and water. But for the conduit, we're able to use the same process to build the core material, and then we wrap that up to create it as a straw. We'll be faster through the FDA this way because we can then leverage off what's already been used in the cuff. So we're targeting a filing towards the end of next year, but that may come forward. As I mentioned before, we believe this is the real opportunity within the company. It's a couple of years away, but this is our graft program, or we call a nerve guide matrix. And fundamentally, what we're doing here is having an off-the-shelf product that is easy to use. So the analogy is if we had a Danone yogurt, it's served for one, you'd take the top off, you can eat the yogurt straight away. This would just allow surgeons to use the product by simply just peeling that back and being able to implant it. This is really for areas where there is some damage, where the surgeon needs to remove some damaged nerve, and then we provide basically the infrastructure for that nerve to grow. So it's a replacement, as it were, but it has benefits. So currently, the current practice is the surgeon will, in most cases, will harvest some nerve from somewhere else in the body and implant that in that site of repair. But that has a secondary site issue in terms of robbing Peter to pay Paul, taking a nerve from one area and filling a gap. And the second is that it has a secondary nerve site. And typically they take the sural nerve from the back of the leg, but this also creates an issue in the sense that you lose sensation and can cause droopy foot per se. And then the alternative is a donor graft product that has significant logistics and cost issues. These products are kept at -40 plus. They take some time to defrost, and accessibility, at least in over half the US hospitals, is very limited, if at all. So the idea here is to make convenience, but also outcomes. I should add that, just going back to that, we have done some animal studies in here over lengths greater than 4 centimeters, and we've shown that we can replicate or do the same outcomes, if not better, than the sural nerve harvest. That is, we're able to grow or have that re-establish that nerve connection, so re-function a fully functioning nerve. And that's quite data that we released earlier this year, and I think is quite exciting. So we are now in the process of transitioning this into scale-up manufacturing under clinical GMP conditions, such that we can then bench test those for our application into the FDA. So investment highlights, we have a product in the market, the first of our product, which helps us start to generate sales, as well as building the infrastructure and the branding around the company. There is a market need. There's certainly a market need. There are other products in the market, but there's issues with the majority of them, and outcomes are varied. The market is growing. It's significant already, but it is growing. We have a diversified product portfolio, and the rationale there is to provide all options for surgeons, whether that's a nerve that's been cut through, a small area needs to be replaced, right up to larger pieces. So that enables the sales teams to say to the surgeon, well, depends what you need. And the classic example of that is in trauma, such as gunshot wounds, auto accidents, industrial accidents. Sometimes the surgeons will not sure what they will actually need until they actually get in and investigate the site of damage. But we will bring a portfolio of products forward such that the surgeon can use one or other, or a combination. We're growing our distribution, and we'll also be moving outside the United States in 2025. So we'll start to see some news flow around partnerships as well as approvals outside of the US. And the board and management is experienced. My background is a PhD in neuromuscular physiology, although I've been involved in the approval and launch of products in the United States that are tissue-based products. My co-founder is Dr. David Rhodes, who's a CSO. And he has a PhD in biochemistry. He's also been involved in the approval and launch of products in the United States and globally as well. And then the third founder is our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Alex Adamides. Alex is an active brain surgeon in the sense that he works at Royal Melbourne most days of the week, or at Peter Mac. And he's had extensive experience in theatre and in situ, as it were. So, Dana, I'll leave it at that. That's my email for people that want to reach out to me. But yeah, I'll take some questions.
Great. Thanks for the presentation, Julian. And yep, let's jump into some questions. So first up, can you please give us some more information on the margin of the products and the sales price?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we have three sizes. We have a 1x1, 2x3, 3x4, and there's 650, 1050, 1450 in US dollars as our ASPs. Margins are over 90%. To put that in perspective, the largest product, the 3x4 at 1450, has cost us around about 100 Aussie dollars to land that in the United States. That's manufactured, packaged, and shipped from the US to the US. We actually have we manufacture the first two products, the cuff and the conduit, in Europe, and we manufacture the graft and have a partnership with the graft in the US.
Great. And how many surgeries has the nerve cuff been used on already in the US?
We don't know the specific number because obviously they tick over all the time, and sometimes we hear about it, sometimes we don't. We just see the restocking orders, but several hundred have been done in the United States to date.
And how many cuffs and conduits would a standard peripheral nerve injury surgeon use?
So it varies. We've seen between 1 and 3 in most of the cases that we see. So you do see multiples. The example that I gave you with the thumb there, they used 2. They used a smaller one as well as a larger one to wrap around to protect that. So it's not uncommon to see multiples. If, for example, in more extensive procedures such as mastectomies or breast reconstruction, we'll see multiple products used, maybe up to 5 or 6 products used in those procedures.
Great. And can you tell us a little bit more about the key benefits and differentiators of ReNerve's products versus Axogen's products?
Sure. So Axogen is our main competitor, the one that we target the most in terms of competition. The main difference for our cuff is that it's absorbed within 6 months. A bit like having a Band-Aid on a cut. We don't walk around with the Band-Aids that we've had on ourselves since we were kids. We want them to serve a purpose. So ours is specifically designed to be absorbed within 6 months. Nerves will repair typically within a 2 to 4 month period. So after that, we don't need the Band-Aid. The conduit has the same properties, so it has those benefits as well. As I mentioned previously, we're also very cost effective, and all of our products are room temperature stored, so they're easy and convenient. So the convenience, the pricing, as well as the utility. And then further to add that to that, we've seen good outcomes for patients. So it's those 4 components that really make our products different compared to everybody else's.
And we have touched on this one briefly already, but what is the current standard of care and how rapidly is the use of biological materials being taken up?
Look, I think they're being used more and more as people surgeons become aware of the need to treat nerves well in terms of the repair process. Really, that's driven by potential for post-operative issues such as post-operative pain, and so we see that becoming more and more prevalent. We're seeing more and more publications and more surgeons becoming used to the procedures. We currently work with plastic and microsurgeons, reconstructive surgeons, orthopedic surgeons, trauma surgeons, and more of them are aware that it's important to look after the nerves as well. And what I mean by that, for example, if you're getting a knee replacement, it's always historically been very heavily driven around making sure that the new knee is being implanted. But through those processes, sometimes the nerves can be injured, and often if there's post-operative pain a month or so later, that's typically because of nerve damage. So surgeons are becoming aware that it's really important to make sure that the nerves are repaired well and that we're getting full recovery on all of those aspects.
Great. And are there any US surgeons that are investors in the company currently?
Yeah, we have about half a dozen surgeons on our registry currently.
Great. And when do you anticipate that you will bring on direct sales staff in the US?
Um, we have one person who does work for us based out of San Diego, doing hospitals targeting and hospital opening to support our 1099s and local distributors. We're in the process at the moment of identifying another person that would cover the Midwest or East Coast. And so it'll be an incremental process. So that's we look to build that again over the next 12 months. We're very cautious of trying to build a rapid sales team that's inefficient and costly. Certainly don't want to do that. And so it will be our target is to open these key centers and then provide those support for those local distributors to make it as easy as possible for them.
Cool. And now shifting more into a bit of an M&A focus, who is the logical buyer of this company and how many products would you need in the market for that to occur?
Yeah, look, we don't haven't set the business up to be acquired per se. The goal here is to provide better outcomes for patients and bring better products to market that are more suitable. And that's where it comes back from. It was really clinically driven early on when we formed the company. However, having a portfolio of products makes us a very logical acquisition target for some of the bigger players, the Johnson and Johnson's, Medtronic, Strikers of this world, simply because they may be selling hardware, plates and screws and they're calling on the same surgeons. So having a portfolio that provides an ultimate solution to all nerve repairs gives the surgeon then, it makes it easy as a drop-in acquisition into a sales team, such as some of those bigger multinationals. And there's quite a number of those that could be potentially apt for us.
And when do you anticipate lodging with the FDA for the nerve conduit?
Yeah, the conduit is about 12 months away. That will depend a little bit on some of the processes and scaling that manufacturing. Part of the reason for the IPO now is to provide that funding to just get that done as soon as possible. So I would estimate in about 12 months' time that we would see that conduit available in the US.
And now from a research and development perspective, do you need any further R&D work on the core product set?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, all of that R&D is done. So now for both of the conduit and the graft program, we're now at a point where we are scaling up that manufacturing, showing that we're able to produce clinical GMP grade material that can be a commercial product. So all of that R&D is done. We do have some we do have some post-market studies going on with our cuff, and we'll look at those as well for the other programs. We do have some interest in other areas, such as our bionic nerve, our interest in dura mater repair. But as in essence of the core three, all of that core R&D is done. So it's considerably de-risked in that regard.
And the last question for today, can you please explain the genesis for how the business started?
Yeah, just going back to what I said before in terms of the three founders, Alex, David and myself, it really originated by saying, there must be better ways to treat, more convenient ways to treat, but also generate um, better outcomes. Historically, there's been very considerable inconsistency in terms of outcomes for patients where there's been nerve repair. And so, um, as a result of that, that's where we formed ourselves. Alex sees it every day in theatre. He knows the issues with existing products and where there's gaps in the market. So we've really leveraged that to design our portfolio and the programs we're bringing forward.
Great. Well, Julian, it looks like that's all we have time for today. If we have missed anything, please feel free to reach out via the contact details on our prospectus. Otherwise, we look forward to welcoming you as shareholders of ReNerve Limited. Thanks,
Thanks, everyone.